our friends at VC Ultimate are proud to sponsor Double Overtime. VC proudly puts community over profit, focusing their support on initiatives that help promote inclusivity. As the first ever sponsor to back professional women's and non-binary Ultimate, VC puts its money where its mouth is when it comes to equitable action. VC also approaches product innovation intentionally to make more players feel like the Ultimate space is their own. Did you know that all VC core products are now 100% gender-free? If your team is in the market for uniforms or custom team gear, check out VCUltimate.com. Not only are they working to change the landscape of sport, VC's performance gear is the best on the field. Thanks to our sponsors of Double Overtime, VC Ultimate. Welcome in to Double Overtime presented by VC Ultimate. I'm Jenna Weiner. He's Sascha Vogel. Sascha, we're done. The Western Ultimate League season have been for a few weeks now. Now done with the PUL season. Congratulations to Raleigh Radiance. First time PUL champions. And as the 4 seed, they upset 2 East Division teams on the way. All the controversy a couple weeks ago was over New York getting picked over Philly. And as it turns out, Raleigh was like, hey, it's not going to matter. We're just going to win it anyway.
Yeah, and they looked incredible doing it too. We can't forget that part. Yeah.
We'll talk more about the games and the weekend that was, but a quick check-in from where we're at, what we've been up to. I spent the weekend out at the Northwest Southwest Combined Masters Regional, Super Regional stuff out in Stockton. Picked up with the team out of Seattle. Shout out Old Soul. And got a chance to play. There was some podcast connections, Sascha, even out on the fields of Stockton, even at Masters Regionals. Because I got a chance to play against an Arizona Sidewinder standout, Melissa Merrick, who turns out very good. Shocker, right?
Professional player, good at Frisbee. Who'd have guessed?
Who'd have thunk? Anyway, Merrick's team ended up making internationals. My team did not. Although we had 13 up to 14 players throughout the weekend. We put up a good fight. So I'm proud of my pickup team from the weekend. Sascha, how was your weekend? I know it's been nasty weather out there in your part of the world.
Yeah, it's just been raining every day. And that's it.
I am so sorry to hear that. Yeah, and it was almost not a rainy day in the city of Detroit for the Mechanix. And yet, Sascha, so close and yet so far. The streak continues. The streak lives on.
Jenna, it was so close. And here's the thing. This was happening at the same time as these PUL semifinal games. And so I have 2 monitors set up, and I had the semifinal on one screen, and I had the Detroit Mechanix game on the other screen. And I was watching so intently, and it was so close. So close. But the Mechanix fall to the Indy Alley Cats 19-20. And honestly, here's the thing. I feel like they could have done things differently at the end of the game. Clock management wasn't the greatest. There was 2 minutes left, and they were down by 2, and then they used 1 minute and 59 seconds to score. So there was 1 second left when they were down by 1. But it was probably the best game that this Detroit team has played in years.
I mean, when they're used to losing by 5-10 or more, losing by 1 is big. Big news.
Huge. Maybe partially it was indoors because Indianapolis has a indoor field that they use. That could be part of it.
I mean, the Mechanix have been hitting on their hucks so far this season, and throwing and hucking is easier indoors.
That is true. Guess what their huck percentage was this week?
They've been hovering around the 80s to the 90s. So I'm gonna guess let's go 80%.
Wrong. 8 for 8, 100% hucks.
100%. Yeah, well, Then we'll do that to
doing
you.
it.
Yeah.
Just keep doing
Might
it.
as well.
You're so close. You're so close. Well, this week they have a chance to do it again. They have a doubleheader Friday and Saturday, both against Chicago. One on Friday in Chicago, and then on Saturday they play in Detroit.
Well, we'll see. Midwest Division looks solid this season, but not necessarily any standout teams. So you never know. And a 1-point loss is, at least a moral victory. At least a moral victory.
At least.
Cool. Anything else on the mechanics? Our mechanics minute? Are we good?
Shout out to mechanics guy Joe Cubitt, who's been there for years. He had 3 assists and 5 goals in this game. It's
That's
pretty good stat line. But yeah, that's been the Mechanics Minute.
Should we talk about the party that is happening down in Raleigh? Assuredly, UNC Pleiades winning in the women's college division, and a few weeks later, they're helping Raleigh do it again. Sascha, do we want to start with the final or with their semifinal upset, or should we talk about the other game that didn't involve Raleigh at all? Where do you want to start?
I think we'll start with the games that came in order. So first game, New York Gridlock versus the Minnesota Strike. A rematch of the regular season game where the Strike came out victorious in overtime. This one did not get to overtime, and the Strike were not victorious. In fact, they lost by 7 goals in this one.
Yeah, not particularly close this time around for Minnesota. New York just got out to an early lead, jumped out 3-0, and then later in the game, they had slowly grown that lead from 3 to 6, and then the final margin of 7. Arguably, is it talent winning out, or is it just that turns out playing on the road is hard, and Minnesota is a chunk further away from Minnesota than New York is from DC?
A lot of it, I feel like a lot of it had to do with the Gridlock O-line just playing probably one of the best offensive games we've seen this season. They were incredible. Like, they only let up one, maybe, I think only max 1 break. I don't remember exactly, but like they just scored, and then if they turned it over, they would get it back. It looked amazing. Like, they looked awesome on offense.
Yeah, per Laura Osterland was there writing up the semis and finals for Ulti World. Her articles for the recaps for semis and final are up on Ulti World if you want to go read those. Noted that the New York offense gave up all of 4 turnovers. And yeah, it's going to be hard to beat a team when their offense only gives up 4 turnovers. And you're not surprised that I certainly I'm not, that New York is at least was able to generate some breaks. And if Minnesota's defense wasn't able to generate breaks the other way, it was not going to go well for them. And I will say, definitely the conversation is starting to happen of like, wouldn't it be hilarious if New York gets in with this controversy and then just goes out and like romps on the other teams and goes out and wins the thing? And after the semifinal, it looked like that might be possible. And Sascha, our picks quickly went down the drain because we appreciate you, Robin, and we stand by your confidence, and it did not go well for your team this past weekend, unfortunately.
Robin looked incredible, though. I mean, like, just the
only problem is it's a team sport. And we know that Robin's incredible. And this was not it was not a surprise to see that Robin was incredible. And New York just simply had too much in the end. I mean, just looking across their roster and their standout contributors, it was like Tulsa Douglas, 3 goals, 3 assists. Cartagena, 4 assists. Jenny De Jesus, 3 goals, 2 assists. Like, that's tough when some of those top line players are stepping up in such a way for New York, and Strike just didn't have the same depth to be able to keep up.
Yeah. Also, shout out Tulsa, because this was the best game I've seen her play all season as well. And I think that I know that she had an lingering injury for a while, and she's finally back, I guess we could say, and she looked awesome. But yeah, congrats.
Tulsa at her peak is real good.
Yeah. Yeah, congrats Gridlock on that win, and offense was clicking.
Yeah. And that's that first semifinal, not so close. Second semifinal, much more interesting. This was one where poke a little bit at Deep Look. Although I think we had some similar sentiments, although maybe not as strongly of does Raleigh have a chance to win this game or win the whole thing? The answer was probably not. We think that this is gonna have too much, and yet there was Radiance earning breaks, coming back from being down a little bit early, and just I think you could tell not only in the semifinal but over the course of the weekend just how much of a difference having their full complement of UNC players was, because like Alex Barnett, really good player of the year for a reason in the college division. Erica Birdsong, oh my goodness, coming up with some incredible highlight plays. And here's something, I'm gonna get on a quick soapbox here, Sascha, if I may. From the college division, there's always a conversation, or from any Ulti World Awards, when we're talking about breakout players, people are like, oh, is this person too qualified? Are they already known enough to break out? And my claim, and this was something that I maintained when Erica Birdsong finished on our Breakout Player of the Year podium this year, just a sophomore this past year. My argument is if you're a player who has moved from being a like solid contributor, solid role player to potentially one of the best players on your team, like that earns you breakout potential in my mind. And like, yeah, does it in college and then goes and skies some of the players who we consider some of the best in the game in the PUL Championship Weekend. It's like, yeah, that seems legit. So Barnett, Birdsong, Colton, Connerly, you, like that whole group is just turns out really good, and gone past DC and into the final where we're looking to pick up 2 titles in the span of what, less than a month?
Yeah. Here's the thing too, like this team, I like watching them the whole season, like they did not look this good. And this, like they decided that this weekend was the weekend that they were going to peak and they were going to go out and they were going to win this whole thing. And they did. It also does help that there are so many of their players that had just won a title in college are still in that, like, they're still in like great shape because they had just played an entire college season too. And they were hungry for more wins. And it definitely showed throughout the entire roster. And then I think in one of the interviews, I can't remember which coach, one of the Raleigh coaches was saying that like that hunger fed through to everybody else on the team that wasn't in college. And I mean, Sheena Titcomb played a great game as well. Oh, also real quick, shout out Sheena Titcomb, first player to win both titles in the WL and the PUL. So that's pretty cool.
Helps to win the first WL title and then immediately move the next season to the PUL and then win that one anyway. Like back to back. Yeah, I mean Q is great. Shout out Q. Fantastic player, fantastic human. And yeah, I mean, it's not right. It's also not like it was only the Pleiades, the current Pleiades. There's also some like former Pleiades, because that's how this Radiance roster is. It's not all, but it's a lot. Claire Revere was great over the course of the entire weekend. And it's like, yeah, that's what happens. And when you have those players coming in ready, and yeah, I mean, I think there might have, if I'm remembering the timing correctly, there might have been like the initial DC Raleigh game in week 10 that was like right after college nationals. But I don't remember what the roster was for Raleigh, and that game didn't matter because they were already in. So then it's like, hey, well, you finish college nationals if you're those Pleiades players, and it's like, cool, time to ramp up and get ready to win another one. And yeah, they did just that. And DC, I don't know, Sascha, what did we make of this DC team? Back-to-back years, they come in as the number 1 seed. Back-to-back years, they don't win the title. While they still have a loaded roster, what do you make of this DC Shadow team? Like, is this just going to be a thing where they're going to be expected to be one of the best teams, and it's just a matter of when, not if, they win the title? Or is there something else going on?
I think it's going to be a when, not if. I think they caught Raleigh on a hot streak, unfortunately, and
they caught Revolution when Revolution
and they caught
was
Revo
undefeated and
last year. Yeah. So like I think they're just kind of like a tiny bit of bad luck, I guess, with the way they drew their opponents. But I don't know. I don't think that they should hang their heads and like that they lost in the semifinal, you know? If that makes sense. Like I think they're a great team. I think that they will continue to be a great team. I don't see why anybody on that team would want to leave the team if they had the chance to play for them again, you know? Because they're great. Like, it's obviously one of the best teams in the league year after year after year.
Yeah, and it's not like they got blown out by Raleigh, right?
No.
It's only a 2-point loss. It's not like it takes a lot in that situation for it to go the other way, potentially. It didn't this time around, but it doesn't necessarily take a lot to imagine a situation where DC is able to pick up a key block or two, and their defensive line, which has been, as you said, pretty much consistently great across the board, is able to, punch in an extra break or two, and all of a sudden DC is moving on for that East Division rematch, but not to be. And then we got the final, and it was another good game. You have to, right? 3 games, 2 of them were like really solid games. Certainly can't complain about that much, at least.
Oh yeah, for sure. Gridlock, lost by 2 points again. Like, again, this Gridlock team shouldn't be. I mean, obviously you're upset you didn't win the championship. That's gonna happen. But like, had a great season. Had a great run through the championship weekend. Fortunately, the O-line wasn't clicking as much during the second game as it was the first game, but it's not like they weren't like good. Like they still looked really good. Like, but I feel like the Raleigh defense was a little more, applied more pressure than Minnesota's did as well, and that kind of swung things in favor of Raleigh in that direction.
Yeah, although I mean it was kind of a back and forth game. At one point the game tied at 8-8. Then Raleigh goes on a little bit of a surge to pun only mostly intended. Gets a 13-10 lead. And then it's a little bit of pushback late from New York to try and close the gap. And again, some really standout contributors. Amy Jo, 5 assists, 1 block. Ina Cartagena, 3 assists. De Jesus, 4 goals and assists. Like, solid all around from Gridlock. And then you have Alex Barnett, who's like casually out here, 3 goals, 4 assists, one block. And it's like, what, that's 7 direct contributions to goals or assists out of 18 scores for a pro team in the final. Damn. Very impressive. Not surprising, but very impressive.
Yeah, it's just, like I said, Raleigh peaked at the right time and they looked really good doing it. So yeah, congrats to Raleigh Radiance.
Congrats to Raleigh Radiance. So now that we've wrapped up this season, Sascha, let's give a few short thoughts on the season that was for the PUL. And we'll probably do some more general look back for the WL and the PUL in the next couple of weeks. We're hoping to have a, I'll say, exciting surprise interview, hopefully planned for next week. So keep your ears out for that. And then we are still hoping to get a mailbag together, folks. So if you have questions, please let us know at OOT Pod on Twitter, or Double Overtime, all spelled out, at old2world.com is our email address. Let us know your questions. Sascha and I are also in the Old2World subscriber Discord if you're in there, so you can drop questions in the WL or PUL channel. So, Sascha, my initial question, and we encourage folks to send questions like this to our mailbag. What's next? Revolution's out of the PUL. Raleigh wins their first title. DC goes back-to-back top seeds, and we have another 5-1 team left out of Championship Weekend. What do you think, looking ahead to 2024, is going to be the layout of the league? Are we going to expect the same 12 teams? Do we think there's going to be a divisional shakeup? Because to me, it feels like there has to be something done to mix it up at least a little bit. Because at the moment, it feels, I can't say too predictable, because when you throw committee decisions into the mix, nothing feels predictable. To an extent, but it almost feels like if Minnesota and Raleigh stay as strong as they are, then we're going to have them as the favorites out of the Midwest and South divisions, and then we're going to have a brawl in the East. And I would love to see some different ways of thinking about what that might look like, whether it's buys or reformatting the divisions or expansion or something. What are your thoughts for the PUL heading into 2024?
I don't think we'll see an expansion. And if there were to be an expansion, it would have to be multiple teams. So
keep the numbers even.
To keep the numbers even, so it won't be as confusing, or yeah.
You mean like it already is confusing?
Yeah. But I think obviously there has to be a restructure of, I wouldn't say like the divisions themselves, but scheduling and I guess how much each game is worth, I guess you could say.
Yeah, because they threw out basically half of the games to decide the divisional winners.
Yeah.
Effectively.
I think that the board obviously seen everything that has been transpiring online with all the frustrations that people have, and I fully believe that they will sit down this off season and try to figure something out, and hopefully it's something that works.
Yeah. I think there's definitely plenty of room for innovation. That's not to say that folks haven't already thought through the different possibilities ahead of everyone yelling at them on Twitter that the decisions were so wrong and bad in XYZ ways. And I think there continues to be, with the PUL, questions about what does this league do? What are its priorities, and what are its communication avenues, and what information is it sharing, and how? Like, there are some stats kind of that some teams are releasing, but not in the same place, but also their results, but also there weren't results, at least on a results page. And there was schedule stuff, but then the schedule graphic changed, and it feels like some of that stuff can continue to be ironed out going forward as the league continues to professionalize, as it continues to sort through the various growing pains. And again, new commissioner this year. So still figuring things out, still finding her feet, presumably. Although weirdly, it's like came in and now the initial tenure is already basically over. If I remember right, the contract only ran through July. So it'll be interesting to see what the board continues to do moving forward. I think it'll help to have hopefully more consistency heading into 2024, because 2021 was a whole thing, and then you had like some teams in, some teams out, but also a full, but also not, and then you had Revo leaving, and that's like, hopefully, I think to your point, maybe there shouldn't be expansion, because that might help the league figure out, okay, we have our 12 teams, we know what we want to work with, we know where we can make improvements, and we can put in, we can find the time, find the ways to figure out ways to make it work. Given the obviously limited resources, being a semi-pro league, having a board full of volunteers, that whole thing. And I mean, again, I continue to be hopeful for the PUL, while I also continue to be frustrated, annoyed on occasion by seeming oversights, even though I know that people are working very hard to make this league happen. And hey, another season in the books, another successful season, and a new champion. And if you're the PUL, market the crap out of that, right? Highlight Raleigh coming in as the underdog. People like, for the most part, when teams, burst through and come through as underdogs, or you make Raleigh part of the big bad evil empire out of North Carolina and just lean into that. Like, lean into the storylines. And I think the PUL can continue to find ways to improve and grow in the coming seasons.
Agreed. Real quick on expansion, I guess we can talk about it more in mailbag. That can be like our mailbag question. If there was expansion, what, like, I would assume there would be 3 expansion teams and where those would be. So we can talk about it in the mailbag.
Yeah, it's a little tricky because off the top of my head, it's like, where do you put the team
exactly
such that you have enough talent and such to make the teams competitive? Although we've also seen in other places, in both PUL locations and WL locations, that areas that may not seem like they are ultimate hotbeds, or are constantly sending teams to like club nationals, at least historically, can still produce pretty good teams. Like looking at Indy, for example, pretty good team this year, made championship weekend last year. People don't often necessarily say, oh yes, hotbed of ultimate Indy, although I know there are folks who will be annoyed that I said that, but just being thoughtful about, like, Indianapolis doesn't necessarily send club teams regularly to nationals. But yeah, Indy Red has been very impressive. I'm hopeful that they'll continue to improve and maybe give Minnesota a loss next year, because that mix things up, knocking Minnesota off their perch.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, we'll get into that more in the mailbag.
Let us know your questions, please. We would love to try and answer them and talk about them. Sascha, some last bits of business. WL stuff. Still haven't heard anything. TBD quarterly update stuff. As we reach the end of June. Again, feel free to send us mailbag questions about potential like WL expansion, or there were questions about how people would rank the WL or PUL teams. Sascha, maybe that can be an exercise for our mailbag, pulling from Twitter. And let's see what else. Picks review. Sascha, we didn't do so well. Raleigh upset City kind of ruined that for us. Plus, we both missed on going with Robin. We were swayed after talking with Robin and picked Minnesota, and it did not work out.
Yeah, I didn't do so hot with picks this year.
You weren't that far behind. Final totals, I finished at 50 and 25. Pretty clean. Two-thirds, right? 66.66%. Sascha finished at 43 and 32. That is a 7-pick win for me over the course of the season. Back-to-back picks winner. Thank you very much. Any other notes? Highlight of the week?
okay, for me, it's more of like a player of the week. And that player is Erica Birdsong. Like we talked about her a little bit.
We already talked about it, but
exactly.
she's real good.
But like just going crazy against some of the best in the world. And very well is on her way to becoming one of the best in the world too.
Yeah. So shout out Erica Birdsong, crushing it out there for Raleigh. And congratulations once again to Raleigh Radiance for taking down their first ever Premier Ultimate League title, your 2023 champions, Raleigh Radiance. That'll do it for this week's show. Again, please send us your mailbag questions. If you've listened this far, clearly you have interest in hearing what we say about things about the PUL and the WL. So send us your questions, and then you can listen to us attempt to answer your questions at OOTPod on Twitter, or Double Overtime, all spelled out, at ult2world.com is our email, or drop stuff in the Discord, or text or message Sascha and I directly. If you have our, jump into our DMs, send us some mailbag questions. We're looking at a couple more shows before we wrap season 2. Until that is, we get to off-season content, player movement, team movement, etc., etc. So, till then, I've been Jenna Weiner. He's been Sascha Vogel. This has been Double Overtime presented by VC Ultimate. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye.